You're listening to Full Circle Weekly news of the open source community presented by Full Circle Magazine. These articles are compiled by Eric the Unready, and I'm your host, Moss Bliss. This is episode 444, covering week 50, December 8th to 14th, 2025. TOWIE 2.0.0 is a console application with a text interface to control BitTorrent clients. The program allows you to connect to the background processes of transmission, QBitTorrent, and Deluge, view and control the list of torrents, add new downloads, and perform a search for popular trackers. Various display modes are supported, viewing detailed information about torrents, control of categories and tags, and switching speed limits. The interface is based on the textual library. The code is written in Python and is distributed under the GPL v3 Plus license. A bug fix was released that affects the supported branches of the Postfix 3.x postal service 3.10.7, 3.9.8, 3.8.14, and 3.7.19. The new versions eliminate the problem with the build from source code arising in the new versions of Linux distributions that have switched to a set of GCC 15 compilers, by default translated for use of the C23 standard. The problem is that the C23 standard defines a new reserved keyword bool, which is compared to a type of 1 byte size. The Postfix code defines its own type bool, compared with the int type having a size of 4 bytes. Attempting to build the Postfix compiler in C23 mode ends with an error due to the redistribution of the bool type. Since the change associated with support for a new type of bool covers many lines of code, they decided not to transfer it to stable branches, but to add when calling GCC and Clang. In the developed branch Postfix 3.11, support for a new type of bool has been implemented. PeerTube 8.0, designed to create independent decentralized video hosting and video broadcasting systems, an alternative to services such as YouTube, Dailymotion, and Vimeo, is out. The content distribution network created with PeerTube is based on linking visitors' browsers and the use of P2P communications. The project code is distributed on the AGPL v3 license. PeerTube allows you to run your own server to distribute the video and connect it to the general federated network. Visitors are involved in the delivery of content and have the ability to subscribe to channels and receive notifications about new videos, no matter which server they use. The PeerTube Federated Network is formed as a community of interconnected small video hosting servers, each with its own administrator and adopting its own rules. The PeerTube platform was based on the use of the BitTorrent client WebTorrent, launched in the browser and using WebRTC technology to organize a direct P2P channel of communication between browsers. The HLS protocol replaced WebTorrent in conjunction with WebTorque, allowing you to adapt the flow depending on the bandwidth. The web interface is built using the Angular framework. Nginx main branch 1.29.4 is out. At the same time, the supported stable branch of 128.x is out with only changes related to the elimination of serious errors and vulnerabilities. A stable branch version 1.30 will be based on the main branch of 1.29.x. The project code is written in C and distributed under the BSD license. Nick Wellenhofer has officially retired, leaving LibXML2 unmaintained. Initially, Nick announced his resignation in a post in September, but so far the intention was only in words. After Nick's departure, Daniel Garcia Moreno, an employee of SUSE and an OpenSUSE project member, and Ivan Chavero, founder of NorTK, was named. These developers have been added to the list, and the discussion of the unmaintained project is closed as a solved issue. The release of Cinnamon 6.6 is out, in which the Linux Mint developer community develops a fork of the GNOME shell, the Nautilus file manager, and the Mutter window manager, aimed at providing a classic GNOME 2 appearance with support for successful elements of interaction from GNOME shell. Cinnamon is based on GNOME components supplied as a periodically synchronized fork not bound by external GNOME counterparts. The new release of Cinnamon will be offered in Linux Mint 22.3, which is scheduled to be released in the second half of December. The first stable release of the Cosmic 1.0.0 desktop environment was published written in Rust. A test ISO of Pop! OS 24.04 is offered. Packages with Cosmic 1.0 for Fedora, NixOS, Arch Linux, OpenSUSE, Serpent OS, Redux, and CachyOS are being built. Cosmic is developing as a universal project that is not tied to a specific distribution and follows the specifications of FreeDesktop. To build an interface in Cosmic, the ICE library is used, which uses secure types, modular architecture, and a the active programming model and also offers an architecture for developers familiar with the Elm interface declarative architecture. There are several rendering engines that support Vulkan, Metal, DX12, OpenGL 2.1+, and OpenGL ES 2.0+. Developers are offered a ready-made set of widgets, the ability to create asynchronous handlers, and use an adaptive layout of the interface elements depending on the size of the window and screen. The technical committee responsible for the formation of Ubuntu releases has decided to exclude Ubuntu Mate and Ubuntu Unity as LTS for 26.04. Ubuntu Unity was left without developers and missed the autumn release of 25.10. Ubuntu Mate still remains on the Mate 1.26 branch formed in 2021, which has unsolved problems and is experiencing a serious shortage of developers. System 76, specializing in the production of laptops, PCs, and servers supplied with Linux, published Pop! OS 24.04. Pop! OS is based on Ubuntu 24.04 and comes with a Cosmic desktop environment. The project is distributed under the GPL v3 license. ISO images are available for x86-64 with separate builds for systems with NVIDIA GPU and also for ARM64. The distribution is aimed at people using a computer who are engaged in content development, software products, 3D modeling, graphics, music, or scientific work. The NicePoint OS project develops an independent Linux distribution built from source and supports its own packages that do not borrow from other distributions. The project develops its own tools, its own set of patches, and its own build policy. To download an ISO image is available, focused on installation of virtual machines, KVM, Proxmox, VMware, VirtualBox, etc. The distribution is free of charge for private and commercial use without restrictions on the number of devices. The license agreement does not allow the user to, quote, modify, adapt, transfer, decompile, disassemble, or otherwise attempt to obtain source code except in cases expressly authorized by applicable law or the terms of the licenses of open components, end quote. It is also forbidden to, quote, transfer, sell, rent, provide for use, publish, or otherwise distribute the software product without the written consent of the copyright holder, end quote. The OS is positioned as a long-term support server system optimized for virtual machines, cloud edges, and nodes. The core, compilers, basic libraries, crypto stacks are all collected under the uniform requirements of reproducibility and security. Docker Hub has official images of containers. Mirror 2.25 from Canonical has a new release. Mirror remains in demand in Canonical projects and is now positioned as a solution for embedded devices and the Internet of Things. The project code is distributed under the GPL v2 license. Mirror provides a set of libraries to create composite servers based on the Wayland protocol and includes the typical functionality of window managers and display servers. Ariadne Connell has developed CapSudo tools for executing commands with advanced privileges. Unlike sudo, the new project involves a model of granting authority at the level of individual objects. The project code is written in C and distributed under the MIT license. Instead of using a monolithic sudo utility in CapSudo, a tandem of privileged CapSudo-D background process and an unprivileged CapSudo utility is used. Interactions between CapSudo-D and CapSudo are carried out using a socket file, and the authority to run the privileged commands are determined by the access rights to this socket. Only users with access to the socket can perform privileged commands tied to the socket. The disadvantage of the proposed approach is the need to use a separate background process to coordinate the launch of each preferred operation. The accuracy of the validity of data on the location of the output nodes declared by VPN providers was carried out. Of the 20 VPN providers tested, only 3 always indicated correct information about the countries of the output nodes. 6 providers issued virtual, not confirmed during the inspection, or immeasurable, countries from which traffic was not recorded, data about the country in more than 50% of cases, and 3 providers measured from 30 to 49%. Some claimed the placement of equipment in more than 100 countries, but in fact sent traffic from several data centers in the US and Europe. In total, more than 150,000 output IP addresses were analyzed, according to VPN providers covering 137 countries. The inspection was carried out by routing analysis, RTT, and delays in the delivery of packages. Information about the country and about 8,000 IP addresses did not correspond to reality. The discrepancy between the declared and actual country could reach several thousand kilometers. 38 declared countries turned out to be virtual, and traffic was not recorded of them. The correctness of information in GeoIP services such as MaxMind, IP2 location, and Digital Element is also questioned, declaring the accuracy of information about the country at 99.5 to 99.9% without verifying the actual location. A new item has been added to the GNOME shell rules prohibiting the publication of supplements generated by AI tools. The project will no longer accept add-ons that include signs of using AI for code generation, such as meaningless code inserts, far-fetched API use, and having comments with tells for AI. The reason for the introduction of new requirements was the increasing cases of publication of editions with the raw garbage code over the past 2 months. These analyses take a lot of time from people engaged in reviewing add-ons. In some cases, attempts to clarify some of the questions that arose in the process of reviewing those editions led to replies also generated by AI. You've been listening to Full Circle Weekly News. For more details, see the next issue of the magazine at fullcirclemagazine.org or check the links in the show notes. You can contact me at bardmoss@pm.me. I'll see you next week.